And joining us, two members of Congress, Democrat Debbie Wasserman Schultz of Florida and Republican Paul Ryan of Wisconsin. Thanks very much to both of you for coming in. Let me start with you, Congressman Ryan. This Pledge to America, you were obviously deeply involved in putting it all together. But look at the very sharp negative reaction from a prominent conservative, Eric Erickson. He's a CNN contributor from redstate.com. He says this: "It is a series of compromises and milquetoast rhetorical flourishes in search of unanimity among House Republicans because the House GOP does not have the fortitude to lead boldly in opposition to Barack Obama." Go ahead and respond to Eric Erickson, who says these are just words, but you don't deliver substance.
Okay, so I guess I'll put him down as a critic.
Yes.
So, first of all, Wolf, we think it's important that we don't make promises we know we can't keep in the next session. If we have the privilege of serving the majority, we're going to have divided government. So we don't want to go out there and promise pie in the sky things that we know won't get signed into law because Barack Obama is going to be the president. What we want to do is declare what our principles are. More importantly, say that we're not going to be like the Republicans that got kicked out 4 years ago, big spending, earmarks, all of those things, and that these are the things we could do right now to get this country right on the right track. Cut spending, create jobs, clean up the way Congress works. This is not meant to be an exhaustive redo of the party platform or a complete comprehensive agenda. This is meant to be a current governing agenda to fix the problems that are right in front of us, knowing that if we do get the privilege of the majority, we will be in a divided government situation.
Well, what's wrong with any of that, Debbie Wasserman Schultz?
Well, what's wrong with it is that they've made a pledge today to the special interests rather than to America. And, I mean, what's particularly galling, Wolf, is that on September 23rd, the day that the Patients' Bill of Rights reforms actually go into effect, and as a breast cancer survivor, I can tell you that that's particularly disturbing to me that, for example, someone like me is one job loss away from being dropped or denied coverage because of my pre-existing condition. Yet the Republicans would repeal health care reform, make sure that insurance companies would be back in the driver's seat. That's part of their pledge to America. Their pledge to America also includes repealing Wall Street reform, putting Wall Street back in the driver's seat instead of focusing on balancing our policy between consumer protection and making sure that business can thrive. They also want to pledge to America that we hold middle-class tax breaks hostage so we can give tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires that add $700 billion to the deficit.
Well, you went through 3 points. Let's go through those 3 points. Let's talk about this. Is 6 months right now, Congressman Ryan. Health care reform has been enacted. A lot of folks are happy that their college-age family members, they're going to be able to stay their kids on the family plan until age 26. You want to repeal that. Why?
The chief actuary of this administration has already told us that this bill is not meeting what they've already said it would do. Bigger deficits, higher health care costs. The CBO is already telling us this thing is a massive deficit. It's not that we don't want to reform health care. Health care needed reforming. We don't want this bill that reforms health care by having a government takeover of health care. What this bill will do is make health care less accessible, lower quality, more expensive, and give us a massive deficit when we have huge deficits. Here's the problem, Wolf. The Democrats here, they didn't even do a budget this year for the first time since 1974. We have to get this spending under control. We got to create jobs. Raising taxes on successful small businesses is not going to create jobs. According to the CBO, it's going to cost us 1.2 million jobs. So obviously we have a different opinion on these things, as you can see.
Well, let's go through the tax cuts that the Bush administration implemented. They're going to expire, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, at the end of this year unless legislation is passed in both the House and the Senate. Looks like the Senate is punting till after the November 2nd midterms. The House is there going to be a vote on this between now and November 2nd in the House?
Well, we're still talking about when that vote will take place, but what we want to make sure, and the clear contrast between Democrats and Republicans here, is their pledge to special interests today came out with preserving tax breaks for the wealthiest individuals, for millionaires and billionaires, holding middle-class tax breaks hostage, and adding $700 billion to the deficit. They talk out of both sides of their face. On the one hand, they talk about cutting spending, but they ignore and treat tax cuts for the wealthiest individuals, adding $700 billion to the deficit, like it's not spending.
Well,
they are equivalent.
Let me ask Congressman Ryan to respond to that.
Deficit.
Because if the wealthiest, those making more than $250,000 a year, get to keep the same tax rate as has been in business now since the Bush administration.
7 years.
Yeah, 35%, as opposed to going up to the Clinton administration's 39.6%. That will cost the American taxpayer $700 billion over the next 10 years. You want to cut the debt, the national debt. There's $700 billion, Congressman Ryan, right there.
Well, not only do I disagree with what Debbie just said, 41 Democrats in her own caucus disagree with what Debbie said. We have the votes to pass this if it's the secret of this. Now, you mentioned a point. Shouldn't we pay taxes on rich people? You know who pays these taxes? These tax rates hit your small business income. About 900,000 small businesses. 70% of our jobs come from these small businesses. CBO just put out a report saying if this happens, we could lose 1.2 million jobs. Here's the point. To get our fiscal situation under control, we need to do two things. Grow the economy, create jobs, and cut spending. Raising taxes defeats those purposes, those objectives. We don't want to slow down this economy. We want to cut spending.
Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz, a lot of economists say they agree with Congressman Ryan that if you raise taxes on those making $250,000 a year or more at a delicate moment in the economy right now, that could perhaps even trigger a double-dip recession.
Well, if the overwhelming majority of economists agree that the tax cuts that Mr. Ryan and his colleagues want to extend for the wealthiest Americans would do nothing to turn the economy around, that it's the middle-class tax breaks and for working families that we need to reenact, because most wealthy Americans don't use that windfall and put that money right back in the economy. They sit on it. They sit on it and sit on their investments, and it doesn't help at all. All it would do is add to the deficit. And I certainly agree, and Democrats agree, that we should be targeting our assistance when it comes to tax policy to small businesses, which is why the Republicans should have voted with us today on the small business lending and jobs bill. But unfortunately, they all voted against it. They have no interest in getting capital out into the hands of small business owners. They could have voted for that bill today and gotten that credit to be available. But instead, all they're focused on is victory, returning to the same tired old tax policy of the past. And the American people are going to reject it on November 2nd.
Are you just the party, Congressman Ryan, the party of no to whatever the Democrats raise? Even if these are issues, these are proposals that Republicans supported in the past.
Look at the thing we just put out today. These are a party of proactive ideas to get this country back on track, to replace government-run health care with patient-centered, consumer-directed health care, to get this debt and deficit under control, to create jobs in this country, to actually make members of Congress actually read the legislation they're voting on before they vote for it. These are common-sense solutions that are anchored in our founding principles. But going back to this tax cut issue, even the president's advisors, Peter Orszag, Mark Zandi, are telling us you should not be raising taxes at this moment. We put out a list of 314 economists yesterday saying, do not raise taxes at this precarious time in our economy. It is very left of center to be suggesting we should have these tax increases. Moderates, Democrats, and Republicans are saying we should not be raising these taxes.
Let's get some more now on the new Republican Pledge to America, as it's called, and a passionate debate between Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Republican Congressman Paul Ryan. Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz, there's anger, as you well know, in the country right now, was demonstrated directly to the president the other day by a woman who was a supporter, and she made a dramatic appeal to the president. In several of these recent polls, when you ask the American people, is the country moving in the right direction or the wrong direction, the overwhelming majority say the country right now is moving in the wrong direction. Recent Reuters Ipsos poll, only 33% thought the country is moving in the right direction. 61% said it's on the wrong track. Your party's in charge of the House and the Senate and the White House. You can feel that anger out there.
We can, and we want to make sure that we continue to move the country in a new direction and focus on the change that people asked for when they elected President Obama. The change that they don't want, and the type of policy they don't want, is Mr. Ryan's proposal to privatize Social Security and pull the rug out from under senior citizens and get rid of the security that they have, or turn Medicare into a voucher program, which is also part of the book that he and Eric Cantor just put out that they're touring the country promoting right now. And those two items, because they're unpopular, weren't in the Pledge to America today, because that's not something that they think that they can get elected on. They're just going to try to sneak that in the back door if they somehow take the majority.
She makes a fair point, Congressman. She makes a fair point. Some of the recommendations you personally have made, you have a few supporters in the House of Representatives among the Republicans. We're pointedly missing in this document a pledge to America. Why?
Right, well, because I put out a budget plan to get a consensus of one person in Congress, me. I didn't put out a budget plan to get a consensus of a majority of Congress. But here's the point, what I was trying to get with this plan. I was trying to get this discussion about entitlements and our debt crisis at an adult level. Clearly that's not happening. What I'm proposing is make sure that we don't cut benefits to people in and near retirement, 55 and above. They just took $522 billion out of the Medicare fund to spend on another government program. They are the ones who rated Medicare. What I'm saying is let's get these programs solvent. If we don't fix this debt crisis and get ahead of it, Wolf, we will shred the social safety net that people have counted on. What I'm trying to propose is something responsible. Prevent cuts from hitting current seniors, people near retirement, and then reform these programs for those of us who are under 54 because we know they're going bankrupt, and put them on the path of solvency and sustainability. That's the responsible thing to do. And I'd like to get to an adult-level conversation, but apparently we're not having that these days.
An adult-level conversation to invest Social Security in Wall Street. If that had happened in the last couple of years, Paul, you would have ended the protections that people have in the twilight of their lives.
I want to give younger people the option of having the same retirement you and I have, Debbie, if they want it or not.
And we need to
That's
reform
not
Social Security,
privatizing.
not yank the rug out from under them. Investing in the stock market is a risky
If it's
gamble.
good for you and me and our families, why isn't it good for everybody else in this
It's certainly
country?
not good for senior citizens or for the next generation to preserve Social Security.
All right.
That will end
I'm actually
Social
saving
Security.
Social Security according to the actual Social Security.
Not if you look at the track record of Wall Street in the last few years. I think if we campaigned together around the country, people would be looking at our view much more.
Why, Bill, you wouldn't even be in the
supportively.
stock market when you're retiring. Look, if it's good for us in Congress, why isn't it good enough for everybody else? I mean, look, we should have.
Our Social Security is the same as everybody else's in the entire country, and you know it.
The debate on Social Security, I suspect, is only just beginning. The debate on a lot of these issues. A good debate we had today. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Paul Ryan. Thanks to both of you for coming in.